Aaron Tan, Editor-in-Chief for Asia Pacific at TechTarget and Regional Director of Analyst Services for APAC at Enterprise Strategy Group. And thank you for joining today's presentation on our 2024 Technology Spending Priorities Survey, where I'll dive into the APAC specific findings. Now, this is a study that we've been doing every year at TechTarget and Enterprise Strategy Group to ascertain the IT budget outlook and the key priorities of our audience in various IT segments, from cybersecurity and infrastructure to software development. We surveyed about 900 respondents, of which 25% are from the Asia Pacific region, and the respondents come from both mid-market and enterprise organizations from various industries. One of the first questions that we asked our respondents was the technology budget expectations, whether they plan to increase their budgets, decrease their budgets, or maintain the same budgets. So APAC is really the bright spot here. You can see that about 51% of our respondents said that they will increase their IT budgets. And this could be due to the region being more resilient than other parts of the world to economic headwinds, particularly in markets like India, Japan, and Indonesia. In India, for example, we are already seeing more investments in data centers, which will have a downstream positive impact on the rest of the IT industry. We also looked at the expected change in IT budgets in different industries. You can see here that the financial and business services sectors were the most bullish, while healthcare and governments are holding the line. We think there are strong opportunities in the financial sector as small FSIs look to, double down on their transformation efforts, particularly through the use of AI. And you can see, although governments are not as bullish, we are seeing the ramp up of cloud adoption in many governments in their digital transformation and digital government projects, providing opportunities for growth. Now, we also looked at the spending increase plans by industry, right? And you can see here that cybersecurity tops the list in nearly every sector. And the second and the third positions in the different industries really depend on what their priorities, right? So for FSI, it's really application development as they double down on their DevOps and application modernization efforts. And for manufacturing, it's Internet of Things, industrial Internet of Things in particular, as they look to streamline their factory operations and make greater use of automation. Now let's look at some of the major trends that have emerged in this study. So the spending intentions that we saw in the earlier slides is being reflected in this list of broad technology initiatives, with cybersecurity at the top of the chart. You can also see that GenAI is pretty high up in the list, and we didn't have an item on GenAI in last year's study, but we think that because of the widespread impact of GenAI on almost all aspects of business and IT, including cybersecurity and cloud, we expect it to rise up to the top in the next few years as the technology matures. Now let's have a look at some of the spending priorities of a major segment, which is cloud infrastructure and operations. So organizations in APAC are continuing to adopt a cloud-first approach in deploying new applications, and this is the highest among all the regions that have been covered in this study. We've seen bullish cloud adoption across the region. It's not just among the digital natives, but also enterprise organizations like financial services firms and insurance companies. By cloud first, they are not merely putting all their workloads on the public cloud. They're also doing so in private cloud environments, and this has really given rise to a more distributed IT landscape that can pose challenges in areas like cybersecurity, manageability, as well as cost management. And you'll see these challenges being reflected in some of the spending priorities in the other segments. Now, with a more distributed IT environment, companies are not surprisingly prioritizing hybrid cloud deployments and multi-cloud software. There's still room for on-premise infrastructure, and that's being reflected through the growing investments by co-location data center providers across the region in recent years. There's been some chatter about data center evacuation, and we think that's a little bit overstated, as more companies are still putting workloads on-premise, and due to various reasons, whether it's data sovereignty requirements or to de-risk from the hyperscalers. Now let's have a look at some of the cybersecurity and networking related findings. When it comes to security operations, SIEMs remain high on the agenda, as it's not easy to replace those systems with XDR alternatives, right? But that being said, the gap between SIEM and XDR capabilities have been closing over the years, and we expect XDR to be the preferred platform for SOC teams looking to simplify their security operations through the cloud. We think SIEM will still remain important as a data source of security events and for organizations that need an on-prem solution. When it comes to cloud security investments, now this chart is consistent with what we are seeing in the market, with zero trust network access moving up the priority list over the years with the acceleration of VPN replacement strategies. However, having said that, this data doesn't tell us if people are deploying these services in this list, like secure web gateway as well as CASB as point solutions. But it's likely that they are being deployed as part of a broader SASE strategy, given that SASE is one of the top priorities here in this list. When it comes to application security, we are seeing security increasingly shifting left to the development cycle to catch security bugs earlier, and those efforts are being complemented with other post-production and deployment security measures like penetration testing and vulnerability management. On the networking side, you can see that zero trust network access again is the top of the list, and this is likely fueled by stories that have highlighted the return on investments from the early adopters. There's also an uptick in investments in SASE. However, it's less clear if the networking technologies that you see here in this list are being deployed as part of a broader SASE strategy, given that SASE is slightly lower in this list compared to the earlier slide on cloud security. As for application and software development, we are seeing local and regional banks like DBS double down on their DevOps and DevSecOps practices, and that's also being reflected in the higher priorities for many organizations here in the region. As you can see in this list, these companies are expected to leverage advancements in GenAI to streamline their code production, to improve their productivity of the developers, as well as to leverage low-code platforms, right, to democratize software development, basically giving business users a chance to build their own software and to automate business processes. Along with DevOps and cloud native software development, we're also seeing the rise of APIs, the increasing use of APIs in particular to connect to data sources, to build new capabilities in applications and to automate processes. And this has really driven a lot of demand for API management and integration tools. Now let's move on to the next major segment, which is business applications. Now we'll start off with the customer-centric investments, right? So when it comes to these sorts of investments, CRM has topped the list of customer-centric investments. So the landscape for such tools we've seen over the past few years have changed dramatically with the rise of AI and over the past 18 months, Gen AI, which is being built into these various platforms to facilitate customer self-service, deliver personalized experiences for customers, and to support customer retention. In terms of ERP investments, another major spending segment, we are expecting huge investments this year, more than previous years. About half of respondents are planning ERP investments. We are seeing more of them embarking on ERP refreshes, like upgrading to S/4HANA in the case of SAP customers, as well as moving to composable ERP at the same time. But even as they are making these sorts of ERP refreshes, we're also seeing companies invest in third-party support services to extend the life of their products as they plan their upgrades. Now, when it comes to information management, we are seeing a groundswell in the adoption of data lakes, particularly data lake houses, right? As companies want to manage their data in a more distributed manner and want the best of both worlds. Despite growing interest in NoSQL databases like MongoDB and Graph databases, we are still seeing healthy investments in SQL databases to handle the structured data which companies continue to manage to this day, right? But moving forward, we see multimodal databases playing a bigger role to simplify database management and to cater to more diverse data needs. In terms of BI and analytics, BI platforms continue to dominate the agenda as companies look to increase their revenue, to improve operational efficiency, and to gain a competitive advantage over their business rivals. They're also complementing those efforts with data streaming as well as real-time analytics technologies to provide insights at the point of need. When it comes to data science and AI investments, it's clear by now that Gen AI is leading the pack, but it's still relatively early days, right? As many companies are still figuring out how to scale up their Gen AI deployments and capabilities while managing the risks of the technology. Now let's go to storage and data protection. So in terms of storage, public cloud storage services has been the top of the list for quite some time now and continues to be the case this year. And this is already being reflected in the fact that many storage suppliers have a public cloud strategy, whether it's offering cloud native storage services or supporting hybrid cloud storage through their storage management platforms. This year, we also expect to see storage vendors integrating AI capabilities into their storage management solutions to detect ransomware as well as to optimize the storage performance. When it comes to data protection, companies are complementing their storage investments with data protection capabilities to secure their growing volumes of data, to improve their cyber resilience, and also to comply with growing data protection legislations across the APAC region. That's a quick snapshot of some of the key APEC findings in our annual technology spendings intention study. So, if you'd like to dive deeper into the data for any specific IT segment, please feel free to reach out to me via email. And thank you for tuning in and have a great day ahead.